Thank you guys for still being here. I know I'm tired from last night, and I even went to bed way earlier than Patrick, so that's a rare thing in my life. I'm Jacob Irving. This is Cameron Voller. So we are here to talk to you guys. We were told about BI and AI, so we're going to talk a little bit about both, but I was wondering, why would you guys even want to listen to us? There's a lot of smarter people in this room, and so I figured I'm going to be here to tell you what I know best is all my failures. So one of my favorite pictures that I have on screensavers, have you guys ever seen a duck land on ice? It's a lot of fun. And they just hit the ground, their face hits, and they slide. And so that's my personal, my spirit animal maybe, because even falling on your face is forward momentum. So it's all about learning, failing fast, okay? So we're here to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly about what we've done. So I'll give you a little bit of perspective here. Chad was nice about calling me a serial entrepreneur. I feel like God just tells me where to go, and I say, okay, I don't know how to do this, and normally it's through my wife saying, you can do this. So even she's the one who dressed me today, because otherwise I'd have been in a black shirt and jeans. So I will tell you this, though, just like Patrick said, and he ended up with a dog. So I had a compromise last night that I went with some buddies, and we were all going to get boots. We got there, they didn't get boots, so I got 3 boots. So I'll have to figure out how to get that through the check-in today. But so in my adventure in DSOs, I started as a regional manager with one office. I'm like, why am I here? Quickly saw how that had to grow. I've been a part of operations. I've been part of IT. I then started my own company to bring IT support to DSOs only. And so that's where my focus has been for the last 9 years. Absolutely love it. I do not like dealing with the Wi-Fi. I'm glad that we've got people who take care of that for me now. But I love sitting down and going, what is the problem and how can we fix that? So in 2018, I was introduced to Cameron on a phone call, and we spent 3 months talking every week for a couple hours with another customer of ours. And the idea was, Jacob knows a lot about dental, and Cameron knows a lot about financial and data and how to bring it all together. And so without even, it was literally, I was on phone calls while driving between offices and fixing servers. Yeah. I'm like, who's this Cameron guy? What's he want to know? But happy to do it. So
you were stuck in the mountains, as I recall.
I was, many times. So we spent the next 7 years working with different customers going, what BI needs do you have? What data do you need and why? And so I had been doing that. My history here is I was in operations and I was IT, because our IT guy thought the way to let your billers get access is just buy another computer and give them go to my PC. I'm like, there's this thing called remote desktop and other stuff. So because I thought about that, I became the CIO. But what I found is in ops and tech, they compete against each other, because ops wants to grow your people, and IT, they talk about it, it's about replacing and minimizing, right? Now it's shifted to give them other stuff to do. But that was the world I was in at that time, and I couldn't do the right job for everything. So I switched over to IT because I love all that. So we've been working with different customers, helping them crack the codes, and what we've understood, what we've come to realize, and we'll tell you where we've done well and where we've done wrong, is you can't just look at your PMS. A DSO is just not your PMS. It's everything before. It's all the marketing, the campaigns, if you're doing social media, if you're just doing referrals, if you're in oral surgery and doing that. It's also the referrals of your people. You have to have doctors and hygienists to see the patients, and that is a big problem that DSOs are facing. So you have to have good recruitment channels and following that. So we were talking about the HR match and all that. Then you got to get them into the practice, and so you have phone systems, and are you going to use AI for that, or are your front office staff even doing them? Do you need to do a call center? Figuring out all those things, you have to have all these data inputs. And what I found is it was always, well, I have my spreadsheet, and I have my spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet, and well, when did you pull that spreadsheet? Oh, 2 weeks ago. Well, okay, we had calls 2 hours ago, so that's probably a little outdated. So then at the end of it, you still have to know how your billing's going, but then you have to tie it into your financial systems. You have to know, your PMS does not have your G&A. It doesn't have all your employee costs in there. Yeah. And so we were doing some cool stuff where we were actually having intra-month P&Ls, bringing the PMS data and the ERP data so that the doctors knew, here's where I'm going to go. And we were using stuff to say, based on your past 12 months and how this is going and how this office is on the scale of everything, by day 3 or 4, we had these war reports, and we'll talk a little bit more deep about that. But we could tell within 3 or 4 days what your month was going to do. And probably we were within about 1 or 2% accuracy. But it was a lot of work that had to be put into it. But that was only for the revenue. It didn't solve for all the other parts. So that's some of the stuff that we were able to do together with this DSO and some others that we came together on. And so then we finally decided, you know what, we got a pretty good thing going on here. I'm not having to fix Wi-Fi and servers anymore. So how about we focus on this? And so that's where we came together earlier this year. And so we're here to tell you about some of the cattle drives that we've been on, because sometimes it's like herding cats, and also the stampedes where we've been trampled. So we will talk about that. So this isn't just, this is how we think it should work. We're telling you this is how it actually played out. So that is our goal here today. So BI and AI, it all has this promise. It's going to fix everything and going from there. And so we think the purpose of your BI or AI initiative should always be, how can we reproduce our top fill in the blank? Our best people, our best practice, our best biller, whatever that is. Yeah. Because, and I'll share some later, if you just take all the data and just manage to the average, that's not what we're wanting. We want to find the best and bring everyone up to that.
Yes.
So, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so we had one customer where for a year, we would meet with the CFO weekly. And that was a good meeting, but that wasn't enough. So we figured out we had to bring in some of the other leaders. And I started asking questions about, well, what about this one person who runs all the office administration, all the scheduling? Like, she was deep into the weeds of the day-to-day. We got her to show us what really happens on a scheduling basis, what really happens, what are the pain points for the doctors, what are the true appointment types. She could define these things like nobody else in the business. So we found that there's this, although we had the CFO in the room every week, he didn't know what she knew. And then we brought the CEO in because he started to come in, and all of a sudden this communication thing started to happen. So you see the build collaboratively and the shared perspectives on this slide. That's what some of that conversation started to generate, an understanding at a whole nother level, not just for us, but for the leadership themselves. They're like, oh, we didn't realize A, B, and C. We didn't realize there was a miscommunication going on because they were using different words, or actually they're using the same word. It meant two different things. And the operation gal, she's like, the CEO, he thinks it means this, but it doesn't mean that. The doctors think it means this. So that kind of fruit would come out of these collaborative discussions. So that was a big win. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things there, this was for perspective, this was a 20-office oral surgery group. They were all on the same software. We had spent 18 months before getting them on there. But they had all these reports, and it was like the dream of the CFO. He had everything he wanted, but no one was using it. And he didn't know how to give it to them. And so we had to then bring the others, go, well, here's how I would use it. And so they actually took their best doctor out of the chair completely. He doesn't practice anymore. All he does is look at the numbers and go train doctors to that 1%. And I've seen that not just in this, but even back in other DSOs I've been in. Once you do that, it's a big risk, but we saw everything rise because of that, especially in your doctors. So here's some gold nuggets. And I put these in questions because my hope is that I'm not here to give you any big insights. The best insights are going to come as you ask yourself the questions and with your scenarios. And so ask yourself if your BI helps remove the clutter in your minds. We've ourselves built dashboards that we think are amazing, but we've gotten feedback that 15 clicks is too much to figure out what that's telling me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, we had somebody, we said, would you please just show us, or let us show you what we have. Will you be a sounding board? And so we got our super cool AR analysis dashboard, and it was so interactive, right? Click from this to this to this, and you can bring all the bad AR stuff to the top. And we got done, and he was like, well, that was really cool, but it took about 20 clicks to get there, and you could never repeat that unless you're a Six Sigma black belt, right? So it was kind of cool, but it was kind of worthless at the same time. So trying to differentiate between nerdy cool, like I would like it, but not practical for the user. So.
Yeah, I mean, we even, just for those who can appreciate this, we were even surfacing the AR, like the actual ledger in the report. You could drill down to that and have it there. So what could that mean? No having to log in through RDP, like pretty cool stuff, but it was buried. So now we're working on how do we make that faster and stuff. Yep. So we always got to be saying we can build it, should we? Because if it's not answering the questions that they need, then they're not going to use it. And so the other problem that we've had is one source of truth. Like I talked to you about all the different spreadsheets. So I was doing some fractional consulting for a customer, and they have a lot of leads, big call center. We had 50 people at the time. And so what we found is that we had all the call data, and then we knew the sets because we had the CRM data, but we would show up to meetings going, here's where the trends are going, here's what's going on, and we were always told we were wrong. And we're like, this is what it is, we're in source data. Well, they had an analyst on their team that we didn't know she existed, and what she would do is she would take the Slack channel where people would post, I made a set today, and that was their source of truth. Sometimes people with their best intentions might overinflate what they were doing that day, if they especially have a manager who is checking on them, like you got to hit your 10 today and this and that. And so we found that that's what was happening. So you got to make sure that when you're showing up to meetings, everyone's looking at the right stuff and the same stuff, and that we understand where those are at. It took us, what that did is it actually brought us and made us, our credibility was wrong because we weren't matching the numbers that they'd been looking at for all this time. And so instead of coming in first and asking those questions, we were now having to play defense. So that's always be asking, what are you looking at? Who's pulling this together? Because I promise you, most organizations have a data person who they think that's their gift to the organization, but they've never been trained in it. The scary part is we have AI now, and I use it. I can write some queries now that in the past I wouldn't even touch. Cameron writes our queries. You do not want me writing your queries. I just validate stuff. But I've been playing with this, and I've seen a lot of other people who do this, but then they take a different take on what new patients are or production and things like that. So you have to have definitions, and that's one of the steps that we'll show you at the end, that show here is our path forward, and here's production means production means production means production, no matter what spreadsheet you're looking at. So CIOs usually work very closely with the CFO, right? And the CFO, you're coming and asking for money for some of this stuff. And they're like, well, what are we going to get out of it? Sometimes they want it very fast. And so we just put some things here that you can look at it. These are some quick wins that you can get out of most PMSs. We don't have all the stuff here for all the marketing stuff because I love the quote, if you've seen one DSO, you've seen one DSO. Everyone has your own secret sauce. We get that. What we tried to do is help uncover your best practices and then customize your dashboards and everything for that so that you can move farther and faster with that. But these are some of the things that I think are pretty consistent across all the different practices and DSOs that I've been a part of. But if you look at here, we always talk about, as I talked about, what's the purpose? So you look at production per provider per hour so that you can look for what's moving, so then you can go make some changes for it. So I think you always need to, the reports you're making always have to have a purpose. And one thing that I would also suggest is stop naming these reports production per patient by provider by week for the last 90 days, right? We might understand what that means because it gives us the clarity. An operator doesn't care. You can have your title, but more importantly, put a description and put 1 to 3 questions that it's answering. So when they look at it, they look at the data and go, oh, does that, what matters to this? Because people can always look at data and get different perceptions from it, but the questions are what dig you deeper to go into the other stuff. So
that's right. Instead of the title, forget the title, just put the question. What question is this graph answering? So simple, but way better received and way more effective. And it helps the leadership when designing this, it helps them go back and forth with each other. Oh, what question are we answering? Because they really think about it when you put it in that question form.
Yep. One other good thing I think we did, which had a backfire on me, it's fun. It's always marketing who like throws me for a loop. But so we said, we need some data consistency. And so we made a chart of accounts for our reports so that we knew all of our marketing reports were in the 1,000 range, all of our clinical were in the 2, operations in the 3, labs in the 4, right? And we use that as a way to say, I don't know what tools you guys are using, but queries get made, reports get made, dashboards get made, and there's a lot of bloat. And so what is the one that someone should be looking at? So we put these numbering system in place. We'd say, these are vetted, these are the ones we trust, these are where we go. And so the best part was our CMO was like, well, this is my report and it's the truth, so he put 1.1 on there. I'm like, well, didn't follow the format, but just because you put a number doesn't mean it is. So you have to have a process where your data analysts, I'm finding in some different DSOs that they're not just putting them in a group. There's value of having an analyst embedded on the team that they're working with, because then they can better understand the operational and the data part. So I think that's great. The thing you got to watch out is to make sure that those analysts have a group where they can make sure they're all still doing the same thing, because that way you don't have one department influencing numbers in one way. So I think it's something that I'm seeing the battle being lost of, nope, let's make this tight group who will understand everything, because it's just not nimble enough. And so we got to be able to make sure that we still keep the quality there with it. So that's one of the pitfalls. If you number it and tell people to trust the numbers, they'll make their own numbers still. So how trustworthy is our data? So like I talked about the duck, you got to pivot. You got to pivot fast. If you guys haven't read like the Lean Startup, it's got some great principles about how you need to not, the high principle of this is, if I built a rocket or a car to move from the West Coast to the East Coast, which one will get from California to New York faster? We can all agree it's the rocket, right? But how long does it take to build a rocket? And once you fire that, if you're off by just a little bit, it crashes and burns. But you can make a car a little bit faster than a rocket, and you can get going. You don't have a map, but you can go and go, oh, I just hit Canada, let me go right. Nope, I hit here, that didn't work. You can get there faster by making small iterative changes and finding what works and what doesn't, rather than building that rocket. And so I think that's the goal of BI and AI here, is do those iterations first. And I think do that in your data, because when you put AI on it and supercharge this, if it's a bad process or bad data, you're just going to supercharge garbage. So it's that whole garbage in, garbage out. So we actually had a call center that was trying to implement AI. And so we had 5 different AI tools that we just threw in. And we had no idea of what were we trying to get out of it. So this is that whole ready, aim, fire. They were just saying, try it and let's see what works. And so what we had to do was find out how to do a proper pilot. And like, if you want to try 3, then let's find some standards. Let's get those there. Let's try one in these 3 areas for 2 weeks. See how it goes. Did it go up? Did it go down? And then do your other one in the same. So you got to reduce those variables and stuff. So you have to pivot, but you also have to know your target so that you can make these calls. And like Patrick says many times, you got to confront the brutal facts. Just because someone thinks this is cool and it should work, if the numbers don't bear out, you got to drop it fast and find the one that does. Like Cameron and I talk a lot, we don't care what the right solution is. We just want to make sure it's the right solution, yep. Not for emotions. So do you want to talk about users engaging with the data?
Sure. So found that we were weak in dashboard design. Really good at nerdy technical metrics, right? That's just kind of baked in that way into my mind. But what we were not good at is designing the visualization in a way that was super effective at communicating. And there's an art form to that. And so we kind of shifted and said, look, we're weak here. We've got to up our game. So what do? We have to become students of where we're weak. Students of dashboard and dashboard visualizations. And so we took some really mediocre dashboards design and took it from probably a 2 to an 8 or a 9. We're still growing and learning in that area for sure. But find the part of your game that's not the strongest, just like any kind of sport. Find your weakness and improve upon it. So it's definitely true in all of these things. So we're constantly finding weak areas and trying to improve.
I think one of the key things we were doing there is we can have reports that say, here's what people are looking at and how often they're looking at it and how much time they're spending on it. But then go ask the user, okay, what did you get out of this? Why are you going from here to there? Because I don't think as an operator, I have more than about 5 minutes to spend looking at this stuff before I'm hit with all the calls. So I need my data fast. Like the FBI guy talked about the book that the president gets. Like maybe you just it needs to be simple stuff like that. You have 5 minutes to get a pulse because then you have huddles that are going on and you got to be able to then see, okay, what region needs my help today? And that might be different than this afternoon. And so also we'll talk about some data maturity, but how fast is your data syncing? Are you able to make intraday changes because of how you're seeing it and seeing the right stuff? So we've talked about consistency. I think there's a big part here. I think to what Patrick was, or to what Cameron was saying, you've got to bring all the players together to talk. This one, and AI made all my pictures. I love making the pictures and stuff. But what I'm trying to show here is that you got different departments, that some are connected to the data and some aren't. They're completely separate. And so you've got to have them talking to each other. You got to start building the railroad. And then we can start building the jets and everything. But what I think the biggest point here that I want to talk about is compared to what? Yeah. Why am I looking at this data? What am I comparing it to? Do I have a target that I'm trying to hit? If you're just looking at data, and there's some brilliant operators I see who know, like, oh yeah, the number's this, there's that, but they always have to remember it, and it's only as good as when they're looking at it, and they can glean a bunch out of it. So how can you put the right visuals in there to show this is the target we're trying to hit, or we're better than year over year, we're on pacing. Like, the data needs to help you make those decisions, because I think what AI and data can do is show you a lot of stuff, but our brains are super powerful at taking that data and prioritizing it and going, I know it says those are the top 5 things, but really number 6 is more important because it drives here, and then figure out why that is. Use your brains for what they're meant to be, which is prioritizing and making those decisions. So if your data is not being compared to something, then it's just wasted data. It's a snapshot that might not mean anything for you. So we also have a bunch of cliffs. We've talked a little bit about, like, you can build dashboards and they'll sit there forever. I mean, I can tell you there's one dashboard we built that we actually sent out to the bank because they wanted to see leads and how everything was going. And we didn't number it. We didn't know that it was, part of this was we didn't know it was shared out with them. And then I sit down with them and they start going, well, tell me about why is patients going this way and that way and your leads and your conversion ratios, like how are those changing? And I'm like, well, it's a positive. Like, no, it's negative. And it was because they had a dashboard that we had built 6 months ago, but we had changed how we do our lead management, our conversion process and everything about 2 months before, but they were tapped into our data. So you got to know which dashboards are being used internally and externally, because you might have someone who's looking at old bad data that does not tell the story that it needs to. So, and I think part of that was we had built such a complex system, trying to tie everything together. This is another thing that Cameron can talk to you much more about this than I can. But I have seen the pain of people who will build the rules into their dashboards by using filters. Your data should be clean at the source. Bring it in. If you don't have an ETL process in place, you've got to get that. That's one of the first things, especially if you're all on one practice software. That doesn't mean anything, does it? Because we still have these wonderful things called users, where you can say, here's the drop down. These are the appointment blocks you should use. And they do, but guess what? We give them the ability to delete procedures in the time when they're talking to the patient. So they might say this was this kind of appointment, and the data tells you something completely different. So you've got to make sure that you don't overcomplicate it. If you can take away the drop downs from your employees, that's the best thing. And so there's ways you can actually use AI to come in and say, here's the groups that you're looking for, and here's the procedure subsets that do that, and now you're defining what it is. We see this a lot with how many of you guys see Blue Cross Blue Shield and BCBS, and it's all space or up cap. I don't know why in the dental industry we do everything in all caps, but it is what it is. So use some software to help clean that up so that your people don't have to. I've seen too many billing teams who they have a whole person who's just dedicated to fee schedules and keep them all together. Use AI to help simplify that and bring it together. The other thing we see is doctors, right? You'll have an office and they'll make it a provider, and then they'll make 3 providers because I want to know when they're doing this kind of production versus that production. And it just complicates stuff. You can do that through the codes and everything. So
Yep. And how are we doing on time?
5.
Okay. Just to exclamation point on this, the idea of gathering all your data underneath before you send it to your Tableau or your Power BI, whatever visualization tool you want to use. Perfect the data before it gets there. All your data coming together, from radiograph data to phone call data to swell review data to PMS data, all these different data sets need to be gathered down there, perfected. Let AI do its work down there. Apply your clustering algorithms down there, and then send it to your viewer of choice. It's so much easier to be successful that way. Do not put rules on the visual layer at all, if you can avoid it. Yeah.
Yep. So we're closing up here, but I liked this generation. But the thought here was you need a data champion, but it's not going to be just one person. One person gets it started. And so one person can get on their horse and run faster than everyone. But if you want to actually go settle something or accomplish, you're going to get further together. So wrangle up your data posse and go into this. Get the findings found, get them documented, and then help people understand the why. We're going to go over there and we're going to accomplish this, and here's how we're going to do it. So these are some dust storms to avoid. We've talked about it, overcomplicated data models. I will say vendors, I talked last year about vendor management, and I'll just reiterate this quickly. You need to find vendors who understand that you're a DSO. You're not single practices. You have different needs and different focuses. You need more data, because if you miss by 1%, it scales the good and the bad. So you've got to make sure you have a vendor who is there helping you figure that out, and not just trying to put something in. I've worked with different partners. I will say Sandler has been a huge one that has really helped me not have to worry about the Wi-Fi and stuff like that. And so I was part of that Nuvia part, and it has been a huge thing. But last, I want to give you something so you can think where you're at. So we always like to talk about crawl, walk, run. And so I changed it to crawl, mosey, and ride. So let's keep with the Western theme, because remember, I have 3 boots I got to take home. So just look at this and see where you're at in your journey, okay? You might be in the crawl where you got multiple PMS systems. You're pulling reports weekly because that's the most that you can get from the timing of it. I mean, for our MSP, we were trying to pull windshield time. So we had our stuff connected into our cars, so we knew how long the technicians were behind the wheels and all that, right? So that was not something I wanted to do every day because it was very manual. So you might be at this point. You might have no goals. You might just be very responsive. Or I like responsive, but you might be reactive, which might be the stressful calls that come in. So what can you do to start getting into the mosey? Like, can you standardize? I heard some people, there's this thing of like, we all got to be on the same PMS. I've heard other people talking like, let's pick 2 or 3. Whatever you can do to help simplify all the inputs so you can standardize those. Then start having conversations about how to agree upon the definitions. I think those are huge. Get rid of the spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are for personal use. Like, don't send me a report that says, here's my spreadsheet, here's what it is, because it's dead the moment it goes out. You need real-time live dashboards. And so if you really want to ride fast, which I think is what most DSOs are here, is to uncover your secret sauce so you can scale it, then these are some of the things that we're seeing that you need to be thinking about. And so if you're not there yet, great. Just make your target. And I'll tell you, these aren't things that you're just going to throw together in a week or 2. Some of these will each take 3 to 6 months because the biggest part of this is change management and bringing people together. So it's our hope that this has been helpful. These are some brick walls we've hit. Like others, if you want to talk about brick walls, let's give us a call. We'll gladly help talk you through it. Our goal as fractional, it's never to be a long-term job interview. I don't want to be there with you forever. My goal is to find people in your organization that we can build up, train up, and empower them to go forward so that we can then go help with the other parts of it. So, because there are people who love this and want to do it, my passion is about finding the problems and moving on to the next one and building after that. So that's what I think we can help you guys do, of just talk through it, because you might think you're crazy. You probably are, but we are too, and let's talk about it together. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.